Hi guys, quite an exciting one for me here today as we unbox the Fanatec Podium DD1. It's my first direct drive and it'd be good to put it through its paces to see how much of a benefit having a direct drive is over my previous occupant of this space, which was the Club Sport Wheel 2.5. Over 95% of my views come from people who haven't subscribed to the channel. If you like this video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. You're doing me a great favor. Thank you very much. Getting this thing into my photography space was a challenge in itself. It's such a big box. It has a nice carry handle and it has two locks either side to lock it in place. So it's nice and simple to open up. I quite like the etched in design on the box itself, but it's relatively reserved for such a premium product. Inside you're presented with the wheelbase straight away. It's a lovely thing and it weighs a ton. Not literally, but it's pretty heavy. You have an instruction pamphlet with the usual stickers. We have a UK plug, USB cables. We also have a shifter cable by the looks of it. Some screws. The torque key. It's the cable I was talking about. RJ11s on it, and the power supply, which is pretty meaty. It's about double the size of the one for the Club Sport Wheel. So now we've got that all out, take a look at the wheelbase. So we've got a number of ports on it. So the back of it has a tiny power button, USB ports, and the usual ports we would expect on the back, things like handbrake and shifters. It was interesting that the power cable comes with a European plug and then an adapter for the UK. Makes for quite a bulky plug. It's reasonable enough to fit it. Fitting the torque key is effectively just plugging it into the RJ11 port. As we mentioned before, we've got the various ports that we would expect on the back of Fanatec equipment. So we can plug in our pedals, shifter, handbrake, etc. So now I've got the DD1 in my rig. I can tell you it looks the part in here. Although I do need to do some cable management. First impressions of the DD1 after doing a little config on it. I think I've still got some fine tuning to do to bring out its finest qualities. But initial impressions are very good. I feel that it's slightly more responsive than the Club Sport Wheel was. Wouldn't say it's night and day difference, it's quite subtle, but it offers a better level of feedback, albeit quite minor, and it does so more immediately, which is kind of what you've heard everyone say who's reviewed direct drive. I have to say, however, I was quite disappointed in my initial feelings of this wheel, and it's mostly because the Club Sport Wheel V2.5 is so good for a bout-driven wheel. Yes, the detail is slightly better with this direct drive, but it's not a huge difference. It's not something that you go, whoa, this is a game changer. It's very subtle. Or at least it felt very subtle for me. This is obviously quite subjective. Your mileage may vary depending on certain factors about your driving. But for me it was a very subtle difference. The biggest difference I felt was that the feedback was slightly more immediate, so I was able to catch a lot more of the slides, especially when I was testing in wet weather driving. I do wonder if Joe Public will be able to tell the difference between a cslDD, the DD1, the DD2, or in fact the Club Sport Wheel V2.5. I think it's such a subtle difference that I'm not sure all people will notice, honestly. In terms of the torque level, that's where you start to notice a lot more, not necessarily immediately. Of course, you've got, as I said, slightly better feedback because of the torque range that you have here, but you've also got a little bit more strength behind it, and that's where my arm started to get tired a little bit later on in my driving. It just bumping up the torque. I think I was at about 50% more torque than I was used to with the cSW, with the settings I was using in Fanatec and in-game. And initially that made very little difference to my driving, but after a while fatigue started to set in. I think yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the increased torque levels. I actually reduced the torque demand a little bit on my settings just to try and make sure that I was able to do any endurance races that would be coming up in my calendar. So I thought it would be worth mentioning the telemetry display. By default, out of game, this displays the Fanatec logo, but it can also display the system information, and that's the DD1 system, not the computer system that you're running on. You can have FFB analysis, motor information, or you can have telemetry displays. And these telemetry displays have various features. We'll just run through those now. There's one which shows you lap position, current, and last laps, as well as the gear you're in and the speed you're going. You have whether you've got DRS active or not, as well as ERS and fuel. TC, ABS, and engine mappings, as well as oil temps and brake bias. And then deltas between car ahead and behind with your last and best laps. Finally, you have one screen that gives you tyre temps and your gear and speed again. Overall, the DD1 feels like a premium product in all ways. It's pretty heavy, it's well built, the ITM display adds value, albeit lost on someone like me that only drives in VR. The feedback you receive from this device is really good. I mean, it is the best that I've ever experienced. However, it's not as big a step from the cSW as it was from the G27 to the cSW. It has quite a substantial price tag, and obviously you will have to consider whether the benefits of this device amount to the kind of price tag that you'll be looking at. It'd be interesting to see what people think of the cslDD and whether something like the DD1 still has a market afterwards. I know people that have had problems with the quick release mount. I didn't experience any of that so far. However, we'll have a look at that in my long-term review later on in the year. Moving to the DD has presented a couple of problems for me, and the two of the rims I own currently have the light quick release adapter, which doesn't unlock high torque. So I'll probably end up having to replace those rims, or at least the quick release that is attached to them. Overall, I'm very happy, and I need to do some fine-tuning to Fanatec as well as the games that I'll be playing this in, and I'll be providing those settings once I've got them somewhere near what I think is a good balance. So if you'd like to see some of those things, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video the thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Maybe you've had some experience with a direct drive that you'd like to share. Thank you for watching this video, and bye-bye for now.
Clear on the right.